How much do you think it costs to live in the French Riviera? If you want, you could take a guess down below. You could get a number in your head really fast, and we're gonna see if at the end of the video, you're surprised by how cheap it is actually to live where I live in Nice, France. Okay, so I've talked before about the pros and cons of living in France. I currently live in Nice, France with my husband, and one of the main reasons why we chose France is because of how affordable the cost of living is. We've lived here for 3 years now, and so I can say confidently that it is cheaper than you think. One thing that you hear all the time is that the French Riviera, the Côte d'Azur, is so expensive, and celebrities travel here to vacation. We have Cannes Film Festival. There's a lot of really big famous things that happen here. However, as far as daily life here, it's actually quite affordable and might surprise you. My husband and I have lived in many different countries, and although France isn't the cheapest, it actually is cheaper than a lot of other places that we've lived, especially in the rent department. I think that France is one of the cheaper places to live and to travel if you also factor in other standard of living. Not to mention that we're really close to a beach and close to some of the most famous places to travel in the world, really close to Italy, only about an hour that way. And it's got a really good airport that you only have to pay €1.50 to get to the airport from the center of town. All of the figures that I include in this video are going to be in USD, converted them from euros, so they will vary a little bit. So, rent in France. One thing that always really surprises people is when I say that my rent when I lived in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, was more expensive than the rent we pay here. And not only that, but the apartment is a lot better and in a better location as well. One thing to know is that the labor of finding an apartment and putting your roots down in France, it's a lot of work. But yes, we were able to find a place. This is actually our second apartment in Nice. The other one was very close to where we live now and similar in price. So we live in a 49 square meter apartment, about 500 square feet. It's about 3 blocks from the promenade where the beach is, and we actually have a little tiny view of the ocean. So I love our view. I won't show it so I don't dox myself, but we have a really nice balcony, a really long balcony. And so all of that to say that our rent started out at $890 a month, and it's gone up to about $918 a month. The good thing is that we have rent control here in Nice, so they can only increase the rent by a certain percentage every year according to the law here in Nice. So I get an email every year when they tell me how much they're going to increase my rent, and it says exactly by how many square meters your apartment is, how much your rent can go up. So I will include, if I can find that, a screenshot of the email and how much our rent went up. So not only is the rent cheaper, but it is also the safety and security that you have here, where you know that the rent can't just be increased a crazy amount out of nowhere. So onto utilities in our apartment. So we do not have an air conditioner here, but the summers have been getting worse and worse. So we have bought a portable air conditioner thing that kind of goes out the window. I think I have a picture or video of it. We use that, so that has increased our utilities a little bit from when we first moved here. If we didn't use the heaters or the AC unit, the utilities would obviously be a little bit lower. When we first moved here, the utilities were around $54 a month, but with inflation and with using our heater and our air conditioning, it's gone up to be around $70 to $80 a month averaging. So utilities aren't that bad. Okay, on to the next thing, which is the cost of groceries and eating out in Nice, France. Now this will definitely vary widely depending on your lifestyle. I've always been someone who doesn't eat out that much, and I don't really go out to fancier restaurants. You'll have to factor in whether you would go out more or where you would go, but I would still say that the prices are pretty reasonable here. So we eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner at home most days of the week and only get pizza on the weekends. So during 2020, when we weren't going out that much, our food costs were about $90 a week, or around $360 per month. However, obviously with inflation and everything that's happened, that's gone up quite a bit. I would say that we spend anywhere from $450 to $500 a month on food, especially because I'm now going out with friends more often, and some of our food, especially our groceries, have gone up quite a bit. So we're not really eating more or differently than we did back in 2020. It's just gotten more expensive. Okay, so for our internet costs around $50 a month. We use SFR, and yeah, nothing really to say about that. 50 bucks a month. Our phone plans are connected to our internet plan, and our phone plans cost around $27 a month for both of our phones, and we share 80 gigs of data. So we have plenty of data, and that data goes across all of the EU. So that's pretty amazing. We don't really need a SIM card for any trips we go on that are in the EU now, which is awesome. With those 80 gigs, we have a hotspot, and a lot of times in the US, if you have a lot of gigs or unlimited data, you actually can't use a hotspot. So I think that's kind of cool that we can use a hotspot even with that many gigs. So when the internet goes out or we have any issues like that, we can always use our phones instead of the internet. Okay. Cost of running a bank account. So in order to get an apartment and your utilities and all of that, you have to have a bank account in France. There are some cases where people have worked out deals with landlords and stuff where they didn't have to do this, but for the most part, you're going to have a French RIB, which is your bank account here in France. Our bank used to cost around $11 a month, but we switched banks, and since then, I believe that our bank account is now free. However, we do not get an ATM card. If we got an ATM card, I think the cost is $2 to $3 per month, which is kind of weird. We use our Charles Schwab account to get money out, so I'd rather use that because it reimburses all of your ATM fees, so we don't have any ATM fees. So we don't really care if we have an ATM card. We just use that account to pay our rent and utilities and all that. I do have to mention that opening a bank account is like applying for a job. It's not like walking into a bank in the US and opening an account in like 15 minutes. Here it's definitely more complicated, and a lot of times you have to have like a connection to get you in the door. Another thing that we have to pay for every month is our rental insurance. This costs around $16 per month or around $185 per year. Okay, so the next cost is our health insurance. So in order to get the visa that we get, which is a visitor visa, you have to have paid for a year of private insurance upfront. Our private insurance used to cost us around $700 for the both of us. It's now around $900 to $950 per year for the both of us. So in a lot of ways, that's still pretty cheap. If we signed up for the carte vitale, or if we like joined the French social care system, a lot of it would be free, but we decided to do this instead. We use Insubuy Insurance, and I'll include a link in the description. That averages to around $70 a month. Our visas, when we first applied, it was about $200 per person, but now that we're renewing in France, each year it's 225 euros per person. I actually just paid that a couple days ago. So in total, that costs about $600. So it's about 225 euro per person for our visa taxes. Another thing to add on to that is that each time we renew, we also have to sometimes translate our bank statements and certain things into French by a certified translator, and that usually costs around $150. The total cost per month of living in Nice is around $1,700 to $1,800 according to our budget. However, I would add on a bit extra for travel and for extra expenses that I didn't include here. I would say for the bare minimum is that you would need $1,700 to $1,800 per month to live a very basic lifestyle here. I would recommend anywhere from $2,300 to $3,000, and you're living a really nice life here in Nice. And that would include any extra things you do like travel, or if you take language lessons or shopping or whatever else you want to include. $3,000 should cover everything. On average, we usually spend $300, $400, sometimes a little bit more per month on traveling around near to us or traveling, like next month we're going to Amsterdam. The costs are definitely lower because we live in Europe and we are really close to other countries. And that was a big factor in why I wanted to live here versus living in Mexico, for example, where it costs a lot to get out of Mexico. Love Mexico, but I wanted to be able to get to other countries really cheaply. And so France really worked out for that, especially Nice, because the public transport in Nice is really, really good. So we don't own a car. That brings costs down as well. It's only a 45-minute tram ride from our house to the airport, and it only costs €1.50, and it takes us straight to the airport, and that's super important and helps keep costs down. And everything also is really close together, so we usually walk. I usually walk when I go to hang out with friends or go to a bar or a club or whatever. I'm always walking. So I don't really use public transport very much. I would say I spend maybe $5 to $10 a month on public transport. So if we average the basic costs with like a really nice life, so between like $1,700 to $3,000, I would say if you have $2,300, that's a perfect down the middle, you can live in Nice number. That's the one I would stick with. So I didn't really include that in the cost since it's not something I use every single month. Okay, so is it cheaper than you thought? Do you think that living in Nice is that expensive? And is there anything maybe I forgot to include? Let me know. Do you think living in Nice is affordable? Let me know in the comments. And also don't forget to subscribe to keep hearing more about France and living abroad and how you can travel for cheaper and learn the language cheaper as well. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos about travel and language learning and living abroad. Thank you for watching. Bye. Let me know in the comments if you were surprised by the cost of living here in Nice and if you're maybe considering a move to somewhere with a cheaper cost of living. Bye.